coming off of a series of work that I did about the demise of late-stage capitalism in its terminal American manifestation. And it was really very representational. And I came to the idea of working with the form of vinyl because I was confronted with a thrift store that was putting a shopping cart of vinyl into the dumpster every month. So I was offered this vinyl, and at first I thought, oh, how interesting. So I took it, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I was working with it with my students, but eventually I figured out that it's pretty interesting to be able to take something that has grooves, like an engraving, and fill those grooves with ink, and then run it through an etching press to make an impression. So I did a whole show based on the form of the record, kind of thinking about it as a placeholder for our time of change and being able to kind of move away from technology in a time when our music is dematerialized. Like a lot of us love music, but we're using iPods and we maybe don't own records anymore. We're getting rid of our CDs. So I like this idea of technology as a kind of jumping off point. And in this show, I really tried to address the idea of sound in a kind of micro and macro way. So this piece here, which is called Stairway to Heaven, is actually, it's a Kabbalistic form from the 1400s, and it's a Jewish form that's really meant to be the tree of life. And you can see, like at the bottom, it's kind of weighted at the bottom. That's the, that anchors the form, and then the crown is at the top. And each section of this form has a kind of metaphysical characteristic, like beauty is here, and knowledge is here, and so on. And so what I figured out is I could take these 45, these are long, So what kind of record are these? Because it's not 12
labeled are 7 inch, but I think you got them a little bigger than.
Yeah, so but these are actual records that are smaller than your average 12 inch.
Yeah.
And I was able just to, what you're looking at is actually like an impression of the record. And when I made these, my husband looked at them and said, oh, dude, you've made the Shroud of Turin. Thinking, yeah, that's actually interesting because it is like this kind of ghostly form. You can really see the grooves and all this information. But then I worked with my husband on the labels to try to do a kind of nod to anthem rock, the rock that we were kind of coming of age in the 70s, kind of a lot of this maybe it's bad music, like Sister Christian, it just like gave me the creeps, but this is actually the section of the Kabbalah that's supposed to be splendor. I thought that it's campy enough that it kind of works for me. But each section corresponds to a place on the separate road. So after I did this, I thought, what if I move away from the literal form of the record and kind of move towards a nod to the vinyl and just have it be a kind of ghostly dematerialization of the form. So this is just referencing the form, but then I'm thinking of this as a cosmology where I start at the bottom with something that's very earthly, which are these volcanoes, and then I kind of move upwards until I get back up to the sort of idea of a metaphysical abstracted space, which is how the walls came about. Because I really, I'm a big fan of labor, and I really like to work, and I really like working in this space. And I feel like I was able to take some of these forms that I had been playing with and expand them and cannibalize them. So like these sections are just pieces of this form cut in half and rearranged. So I was able to kind of create pattern as I went. And then I would find ways to reference it in terms of, I thought, well, this is made of a lot of triangles, so I'll triangulate something and have this relate to this. So it wasn't there was no logical, intellectual stream. It was more of a kind of reverie of like, how does sound feel and what can I do with scale? So other than that, I think.
How about this back wall?
The back wall is, I don't know if everybody wants to get up and move, but check it out. It's made out of Hamilton wood type. And I'm actually from Wisconsin, and the Hamilton Wood Type Company was in Wisconsin, and I happened to get a set of this type, and I decided to use it to print onto fabric. And what I chose to print were Vic Chestnut lyrics, and he's an artist who died 2 years ago. Am I right about that? Anybody know? Around that time, and I was able to meet him, and I really like how kind of pithy and nutritional his lyrics are. They're like they're rough, they're kind of ironic, they can be a little dark, and the lyrics here say, free of hope, free of the past, thank you God of nothing, I'm free, free at last. And I think in a way there's this kind of possibilityist essence to that, where it's not just dark and like negative, it's kind of it takes me to a place where it's like, all right then. I mean, obviously we're not free of the past, like that's impossible, and we're not free of hope, but I like, that really spoke to me, so I decided to find a way to kind of push it back in a kind of, I'm thinking about Vic Chestnut when I make this, like I want to pay homage to him, but I also wanted to utilize some of these patterns. So this pattern is derived from the very corner of this, where I just flipped it and mirrored it and played with it, and the back is a stepchild of that pattern. So it's like everything in here is sort of bouncing off and speaking and reverberating the way sound reverberates. So I'm kind of making those loose abstract connections around sound, and also scale. Like one thing I'm trying to do with a piece like this is I want something that's bigger than me, a lot bigger than me, because I want to be able to be in a space where something's going to make me feel smaller. Like I just want to relate to it in a different way. I went to the Berkeley Art Museum and saw the Barry McGee show, and I loved it. But I felt like if I could give him a critique, I'd say, think about scale. Like I love the pattern, but I think I want to work towards like a kind of undulating, shifting scale. Does anybody have any questions?
I think your process is pretty fascinating.
Printed on fabric?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's another thing. Like I talked about the recycled vinyl. These are all thrift store bed sheets. So somebody was joking that I might give the compound bed bugs, but like I'm coming in here and I'm always wondering like why do they smell the way they do? They all smell the same. But if you look at this wall, every color here was a non-solicited collaboration where I just took what I found and then printed it. And the piece came about in a way where I didn't draw it out, I didn't really do a study. I was playing a lot with the forms, but when the day came to install, it happened the way you would paint, where I kept making decisions and deciding what to put where. Same there. And actually, Matt and I collaborated a lot on that wall because the gallery was just covered in pieces, and some of the pieces are interesting because like this is actually also made out of thrift store bed sheets, and some of the pieces over there, if you look closely, there are always amazing elements to me. Like there are people that actually sew up holes in their bed sheets, so that you'll have like these mended areas. And if you look right behind Lena on the wall, there's a mend right on, like in the kind of text part where I just printed right over it. And I just love those little bits. But also there's sheets that are striped, and the form on the upper right-hand corner, Matt bought a new press. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, no more presses at the compound, because like if you go back there are like so many presses. But of course, like it's the biggest bed that we have. It's a 25-inch bed, and I had to use it. But the day that I went to use it, there was no backing for it. So I took vinyl, and I used vinyl as the backing board, which is why you see all these weird circles and it's all fuzzy, because I was desperate. I was like, I must make this work by shoving records underneath it, of course breaking them. The next day I sent Matt a text or Lena, I was like, please make a backing for the press. And he did like that, and now it works great. So fabric, yeah.
Fine linen.
What?
Fine linen.
Yeah, I could say that my work is on linen, but I think that would be sort of
pushing it.
Like pushing it, yeah.
What about this piece?
That is a collaboration with Matt Reynoso.
I made
here.
the form and Jeanne did the rest.
And he made the shape, and these are all records that I printed, and then pieces of fabric, and there's some weirdness to, actually I don't think I can pick it up because it's stuck down, but there's a hole back here where it's right in the middle of a record, and it just, every time I look at it, it cracks me up.
Yeah.
It's like really, there's a humorous quality to it.
It's a cube octahedron, I believe, is the form.
Yeah, it's
Cube
like
octahedron.
8 triangles and 6 squares.
Okay.
So when I think about the show, the thing that's most like the last show I had here, these 2 blue pieces on the wall where it's much more of a traditional kind of representation of vinyl with a label and the grooves, but I'm bringing more kind of representational elements in. And this is a little bit like the earlier work that I was making, the redshift work. So, anybody else have questions?
So how did the writing come in?
Good question. So I like to experiment, and I keep piles my experimentation to the point where coming up to this show, my desk was taller than me. And like Matt's pretty tidy. It's like, this is a clean, organized place. And I would go into my space and it would just be like this pile of fabric. So I had the text that I had done, and I can't remember what the context was. But I actually didn't install this wall because I sprained my ankle the night before. So I basically stood back here and like pointed to things. And my husband, who is a nice guy but can be kind of surly, did things like grab from the wrong pile. And the woman who was working with us, Taylor, who's amazing, she and I really had a great understanding. But when the end of the night happened, there was like a weird gap there. And I felt like, well, I need to. It was a lot like painting where I felt like, well, something needs to be there, and I don't want it to be solid, and I don't want it to be textured, so I used the text. And some of that text is actually over on that wall. Amanda?
It looks like subtext, you know?
Yeah, it does.
It's subtext!
It's underneath everything there. You just don't know.
The subtext. It's on, good job. It's on the back wall too. So there's, part of it is exactly a year ago, I broke both bones in my leg. And at that time, I started doing a lot of letterpress because I could do this. It was like, I had like this giant cast and I was like this. And then I would lay in bed and like carve linoleum. Oh, I hope that.
It's okay, we only have a few viewers.
Anyway, I started doing a lot of linoleum, which is funny because in my career I've gone far into the realm of digital. Like I'm heavily into digital, but it's great to come back and do like the crudest, most simple, low-tech thing, which is carving linoleum. And that's a lot of what you're seeing in this show is just carved linoleum.
I have my own attachments, but I'm curious for you, or if you have an explanation or a reason for your choice of using the color blue.
That's a good question, and it's something I've been kind of dealing with where I teach color theory, and it's strange because I'm super monochromatic. Like I tend to only want to work with like hot pink and red and white, and then I've done that for years. And I thought I wanted to move into this kind of hello, Zeke and Adrian!
Hey guys.
Come on in. I wanted to move into this kind of non-tangible stuff. I've been doing a lot of reading about the color blue, but none of the reasons for using, like in a theoretical way, there is no theory behind red, whereas I have good theory for using I have theory for red, I don't have it for blue. So in that East Bay Express review, they asked me why blue, and I said, because I'm a Democrat. And they're like, that's like asinine, but you know, I think it's because it's like deep and quiet, and it's calming.
It's perfect with
more
these
intuitive.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Cosmic.
more intuitive. Yeah, it's cosmic.
Plus, if you want something bigger than you don't want something that's going to be aggravating and bigger than you. You want to be able to like kind of be there. I mean, that's what you were, when you were explaining that, I could kind of see it with blue.
You could do this in red, and it would be really wonderful and intense, but it might be a little too much to live with for long periods of time.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Who knows? I mean, I live with some crazy stuff in my house. I have rainbow.
Like a child.
I have a color theory wallpaper that I made in my kitchen, and I call it a kitchen.
Because
and it's
it's
like,
kitchen.
it's rainbow. And the other day, Matt was like, Jeanne, is your kitchen really black? And I was like, yeah, it has black elements, but
Awesome.
it's got some red in it.
And this piece, I mean, both of these wall pieces, all of the wall pieces, and her work as a whole, she's really, we work together a lot, and we're just around each other a lot. She's very spontaneous. Like this stuff, she works like crazy, works really hard. So she just prints this whole thing. She goes, I have an idea. This is already going to do a wall installation, but it's not totally contrived. It's not totally laid out. She just prints until she has a stack this big and goes, I think that's probably enough. And then kind of makes it happen at that point. It's a great approach. I like it.
Well, I think
So it's very painterly in that way.
it is, and I think, you know, when I'm examining the process, I'm thinking about whether I want to do more planning, because I figured out a grid for this wall, and I was able just to like stick. It helps if things are square because it allows you to cannibalize a form and like put it at, connected in different ways. So I was able to sort of surprise myself, which is what I wanted. But in the future, I'm not sure. You know, like every time I have a show here, like my mother-in-law was here, and she's wonderful, and we were sitting in the back, and she was like, in an epigenetic sense, you can tell that the compound has affected you in that nature, not nurture way. Because look at the ceiling, and I'm like, wait, my brain is exploding. I need to write this all down. But she's really deep and really like, she's metaphysical, but she's also very intellectual. And if it's true, if you go to the back of the compound and you look around, you realize that's sunk into my head in a very profound way if you look at these forms. Because I cannot identify where I got this form. I know I didn't make this, right? Like this exists in the world. It's like Buckminster Fuller, but it's also very Islamic. So I think just looking at that Sephiroth form and then looking at the ceiling and then looking at these, I realize like it's all very, very nature and not nurture. Anybody else?
Any thoughts, any questions? I thought it was interesting how vinyl, right, is this very tangible way of us owning or possessing music, and now we're completely digital, like you're commenting on it, and how you can actually buy vinyl now with like this digital download. And I do it a lot of times where I'm like, I want this really tangible object because I paid for it, but then at the same time I want the convenience of it being completely digital. So we're at the extreme ends of things right now, where you're like possession and object and digital realm. You can kind of have the best of both worlds.
Best of both
And you got to
worlds
heft the
is
vinyl around, sure, but at least you have this object that you get to possess.
I mean, you guys really do collect vinyl, and I'm always like watching that. I love, we listen to music when we were putting up the show, but I actually, you know, my turntable died, you know, and I'm definitely, my daughter's learning to play the violin, and we couldn't find anything to play her like Suzuki CD on. You know?
Come here.
So it's ridiculous, but it's true. That's definitely, and I think I'm thinking now about other technology that's like that, because like I was thinking about the film that's in the motherboards of computers. You know, artists have gravitated towards that, knowing that this is this great thing. It's like a photographic process where we can get our images onto plates that way. But it's like, it's the circuitous route from technology that was designed for computers to something that's really going back to like 15th century engraving. You know, it's just very, you know, they talk a lot about post-digital printmaking.
Exactly.
Because we're all,
Same thing. It's like an artist or a poet. They want to print their poem, and the ultimate way to do that and to make it tangible in the universe or in the real world is letterpress. There's something really tangible and real about it. Same thing with vinyl, I guess. You know, like, a friend of mine just brought me a record. He just released it on vinyl. You know, it's kind of interesting.
I mean, it's true, and those poets who are doing letterpress, like we had a letterpress show here where I was like, oh, where did you get that type? It's like so dinged up, and the woman was like, oh, that's digital. So you can't tell, because a lot of the people that are doing letterpress, it is technically printed on a letterpress with that style, but all of those forms are emanating from the computer. Like it's just we're just mixing it up. They keep making it.
So are we afraid of going completely digital? Is that what's going on? Or the intangible?
No, you know why? Because so much of our world is made by people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like everything in here was made by someone. It's not often made by us anymore, but this idea of labor is still a real prevalent issue.
Sure.
And I think this whole notion of craft, like let's save craft, like often people who are really into saving craft are doing things that it's a nostalgic thing. Like my thing is trying to be a non-nostalgic nostalgia because I really like to make things.
I think there's an interesting correlation, though, between your process and the materials that you choose. I mean, particularly thinking about the quality of records and listening to a record and the fact that it lends its own artifact to the sound of the music by listening to it on the record, and the way that you explained, you know, the printmaking process and sort of the intuitive happenstance things that happen throughout doing that. It's like your way, the materials and your process adding to it. And I think that there's a neat correlation between the two, like the mending of the sheets, you know, and then printing over it, or just not really, you know, knowing like the overall dimensions, you know, just kind of intuitively printing and then making it work.
Totally, and like so many good things are like that. Like I went to a concert last night at the Freight and Salvage, and there was this guy playing this instrument I had never seen before. It was like this tall, and it looked like a bass, but it had a big spike coming. It was like a freestanding form, and I went up to him and I said, "What is that?" And he was like, "Well, I designed this myself to fit in the overhead of your average airplane." And I was like, that's how the world is, you know, it's like that's important, but then it also makes this amazing sound. Like one thing that came out of making this piece is everyone's into screen printing. Everyone at the compound screen prints. It's like great, we love screen printing, but you can't get a ghost with screen printing. So I feel like I'm double dipping. Like a lot of the fading out you're seeing is like me inking, and maybe just, it's like not real laziness, but it's just like printing and printing off the same plate without re-inking. And weird things happen. Like Lena's buttons from her shirt are embedded in the wall over there because I attempted, like, this amazing band Space Ape played at my opening. They were great, and I made them suits to wear, but I was also trying to do other clothing, and there's actually like a button that embedded itself on the plate. It kind of messed up the plate, but it was like great to see it like on the form. So you can't plan that. To volume?
Sound volume and visual volume.
Yeah, like
Oh, with the
it's
tonalities?
like the
Sure.
vibrations are like shorter. Like that. That's good. Thank you.
Jeanne loves labor. Like she says, she likes to work, and this stuff could have been silkscreen, may have been a lot easier, but it wouldn't have the same effect. If you could see the process that goes into printing these, I mean, so these are hand-cut linoleum blocks. She has a roller, this hand brayer. It's like this big, and she's just like, gotta ink up those plates by hand, each one, and then roll it through the press. I mean, this is incredibly labor-intensive. So I think you must enjoy the process, obviously.
I do.
Or you wouldn't do it.
I feel like it's also, it's the physicality of it, and I also like the social aspect of it. I mean, one reason I like working here is that there's all kinds of weird things going on in the space. And so as I'm doing it, you know, like I'm not checked out. I'm kind of engaging in conversations with you, or like whoever's around. And also a lot of people helped me make this work. So there is a kind of collaborative, like Matt basically installed that wall.
No,
For the most part, I did all the low stuff. Adeline.
I've done a lot of wheat pasting before. So.
Yeah, my 8-year-old has really good manual dexterity, and she did all the low parts.
She's amazing.
And then Canyon and Taylor did this wall, and Weber did that wall and this wall. So I was there like the whole time, but the labor of installing was really lessened by everybody helping out, which was fun. Any other questions? Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, thank you, Jeanne.
Okay,
It's been
thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Feel free to hang out Well done. Yep. You guys, lots of tea and snacks, and feel free to hang out, enjoy the show. The studios are open too. You can look around the studios.
I'm always Oh my God. I'm sorry I keep sending you and saying, you know, like, I saw this here figured out though. Can I come by when you're chilled out, just with my heart up, and you can be like, this is the thing, I need to go to the program.
When do you need to have this happen? I need Saturday.
Well, if this is a hectic week, I can wait until January, or I could come by and say, okay, that's it's a day. So I'll bring my external hard drive and then I will be on. Oh, yeah. Okay. I have a meeting on Tuesday. So we're
Oh, okay. I'm not sure why, but this particular print, we had the L show, is with an artist who came from, anywhere in France, big Seattle, and there was a bunch of boilers, and there's like all of the female artists in Seattle, and on the way back there, and all the stuff. And they all look the same. And so they're it's just like a little line going in the dress. And so we was set up because it was that day. At college, and one of the things in it was working for the college, and they thought it was there's been a lot of like movie things around areas that we could just like make something like that sophisticated or just that, like, and that's another reason I realized about myself that I do like what I do. I don't want to be nice. So, like, even when I think about myself in the past, it's really nice to be that's the like, well, you probably are if you need to protect yourself like that.
like that too. I kind of see a lot of
Like it's just amazing. Like go back there. Oh my gosh, yeah,